Watch the fragments of silicon glittering in the morning sun.
All right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon Daylight Interviews. Joining us this week is Peter Wolk. Is that how that's
Yep.
pronounced? Okay.
Volk. Volk.
Volk. Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that was German or not. Okay. Peter Volk of
Uh,
Star
yeah.
Drifters. Like,
Hi, hello. I'm Piotr and I'm a designer and main programmer of the game Danger Scavenger.
hmm And all right, so how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people or person behind the game studio, whatnot, and we do this by starting with this question: what got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Well, as far as I can remember, the video games always interested me. And at some point in middle school, I started wondering how would it be to just create a game. So I started with creating simple text-based RPGs. uh, Later on, I decided to study IT, and as I gained more skills, I started to make uh, better and better games, and uh, now I can create some professional level games. So and and improve myself over time.
Well, I suppose the next question is, what sort of games or prototyping did you do before Danger Scavengers?
So I was working on first games I made were really just for friends, nothing I would share. Later on, I made a simple mobile game that I put on the Android store to download for free. And later on, I worked for a Polish studio. We created 3 games, one of which was the cyberpunk RTS called Religion. We worked in a team of 15 people. We also created some mobile games, some really simple puzzle games. Those were the commercial types. And later on, I decided to uh, create something on my own. So I started prototyping Danger Scavenger. So for the first half a year, it was my solo project. And after the half a year, I decided to go to the games convention. And during those 3 days of showcasing my game, I met Michal from Star Drifters.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked a lot about the game and its future and decided to join forces and improve the game together with Star Drifters. And after that, we were working for a little bit over a year on this together. And finally, we have released the game just a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. And what was working on the Cyberpunk RTS? Was that the impetus of making this roguelike in a cyberpunk setting, or did that come from another cyberpunk source?
You know what? My prototype was originally set in the 80s. It was about a guy who cleared the islands from vicious robots. It was really set in a retro art style. Uh, there were only some peaceful islands that you traversed. And after our talk with Michał, we decided to set the game high up onto the rooftops of skyscrapers, so that the game will be more intense. We wanted players to feel more adrenaline when they fight those robots. So we decided to put the game in the cyberpunk setting. But originally it wasn't my intention. So.
Okay.
But it
And-
seems to really fit this dynamic of this game. So I think this was really like a good decision.
Well, if nothing else, it's certainly not so much a unique setting, but a unique subsetting. That is to say, we don't get a lot of roguelikes that take place in skyscrapers.
Yeah, that's right. So that was a thing that really made this game unique. So it was set on those skyscrapers. You could see whole city in the background, and it really worked on the player's imagination.
Right. And is the whole skyscraper setting, is that just an aesthetic thing, or does it have, say, gameplay implications? Like, for example, does weather play a part? Do you have to worry about wind or rain?
No, originally we thought about some. Yeah, so we thought about weather impacting gameplay, but in the end we didn't do that. But you can fall from the rooftop. You can set enemies flying from the roof when you hit them when they are close to the edge. And it connects to the game's story because you are one of the scavengers, the outcasts, that want to save the world from the evil AI that overrun those skyscrapers. And you traverse through the rooftops higher and higher until you reach the final level, fight the boss, and destroy the antenna that is on the top of the building, so that you can free this part of the city that this building is located in.
And so, in terms of being, okay, is this a rogue like or a rogue light?
It's a roguelite, I would say, because you save some of the inventory, and it's originally we thought about roguelike, but we listened to players' feedback that this game is too harsh and too hardcore for them. So we decided to make this more easy to approach to new players. So we made it roguelite.
Okay, and did the players attune towards that? Like, did they like that change?
Yes, because we launched the game in early access like a year ago. It was really hardcore game that didn't that punished new people, new players, and we listened to players' feedback, and our score immediately changed to much more positive, and we got a lot of comments that approved this change. So we made two game modes. So one is the arcade mode, that is this let's say easier to approach game mode, and the other one is the hardcore mode, which is the original roguelike experience that was there when we entered the early access.
Okay, and in terms of it being a roguelite, you get to retain some of your equipment, but are there permanent upgrades as well?
Yeah, so every action you take grants you some score. So for example, destroying enemies, picking up items, crafting stuff, and it all gives you some score. And when you die, this score is added to your total sum of points. and you unlock new items and weapons when you collect enough score. You can also unlock new characters for completing in-game missions.
Mhm.
So every time you die, you unlock something new, and your runs are more diverse, and you can pick up more items, more weapons.
Okay. Fairly standard stuff in terms of that particular design. But let's see here. Is there a leveling or skill system in the game?
No, but each character has its own unique skills and starting items and weapons. But there is no like skill trees or gaining new skills. Just unlocking new content for the future runs.
Okay. And this switches over to the character classes. Okay, I suppose first, are these actual characters or are they just classes? Like, are these actual people who are involved with the story, or is it a bit looser than that?
Yeah, so those are different characters.
Mm-hmm.
6 of the scavengers that grouped up together to fight evil. Each one is can be compared to some of the classes known from other games, like some really quick ninja character, some tanky, slow but really having a lot of health character, and so on. But yeah, those are separate characters.
And do the characters okay, they have different stat differentials, but do they have like unique powers or unique weapons?
Yeah, so each character has a different dodge ability. So some characters can, for example, jump for huge distances and damage enemies after they land. Some character can fly around using jetpack. Others can just make a dodge roll. Some can dash around. Also, each character has different starting items. So, for example, some characters can become invisible for a short duration. Some characters can call the support drone that supports them with in the combat. They also start with different weapons, and they have different weapons to choose from before they start their run.
Okay. And what sort of weapons can you wield here? Like, I imagine there's some standard ones like your pistols, your shotguns, but like seeing the footage, there's been this like circular saw blade weapon that I've been seeing.
Yeah, so there are about 40 weapons in this game. Some are, as you said, standard weapons that shoot projectiles like machine guns and so on. Some can shoot like laser beams or shoot a burst of homing drones that search for enemies and explode on contact. There is a soul blade launcher that launches the soul blades that mm, that are deflected from the surfaces and can really quickly you can change the whole level into the populate the whole level into the with the flying saw blades. Yeah, so and there are like inferno launcher that damages enemies in the area. After the projectile explodes, it creates a area effect, a flaming area effect, and when the enemies enter it, they get damaged over time. So yeah, there are a lot of different stuff here. And you unlock it as you play. So when you begin the game, you have a small arsenal to choose from, but as you progress, you unlock more weapons that are really surprising for players.
Okay. And as I understand it, this game also has a crafting system, which makes sense given
Yes.
the scavengers part of the title. How does that work?
Yeah. So in the hub, so it's a scavenger's secret base. You can use the workshop in which you have the items that you have collected. You can connect. You can combine items to give them new new effects. You can also add those items to your weapons to make your weapons. For example, when you have a saw blade that orbits around you, you can add it to your, for example, machine gun. And now your machine gun has a chance to shoot the saw blade into enemies. And in this way, you can upgrade your inventory in really various ways to better match your playstyle. You can create your own builds that work for you, and yeah, it gives players a lot of room for creativity.
And like, can any weapon combine with any weapon here?
No. You can only add items to items or to weapons, but you cannot combine weapons.
Okay.
Also, there are rare weapons that have better stats, but they are the better version of the regular weapon, and they have more slots for upgrades. So rare machine gun would have, for example, 2 slots, so you can add 2 items to modify these weapons attributes, and the normal machine gun would, for example, have 1 slot. So rare items are a bit better.
Yeah, that makes sense. And is there a multiplayer component to the game?
So there is a local cooperation mode. You can play with your friend. So there is two-player cooperation mode, but it's a local play. But we also support the Steam's remote play feature. So when you have a good internet connection, you can actually play it online using this Steam's feature. And when you play in cooperation mode, the enemies are more powerful. There are more of them, but the rewards that you will get will also be more worth. So it's harder but more rewarding then.
So it scales.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And is it up to 2-player, 4-player?
Up to 2 players.
Okay.
We originally thought about 4 players cooperation mode, but it was really chaotic. You can imagine that it wasn't that much fun that we imagined. So we just made it 2-player cooperation mode.
And I guess that depends on what kind of fun you're looking for, because there's fun to be had in that kind of chaos, but this doesn't seem like the game for it. That makes sense.
Yeah, we wanted players to experience really dynamic combat, but we want players to be able to dodge all the bullets that are on the screen. And when there were four players and a lot of stuff was just flying around, people just couldn't dodge some of the projectiles, and it was really frustrating, and it really removed some of the fun from the game.
That is unfortunate. Like,
yep.
And anyway, so in terms of the world here, beyond it being, a cyberpunk dystopia of the near future where evil mega corporations rule the land, what's going on here?
So those corporations created AI that was made to guard their buildings. But over the time, corporation just by accident led this AI to become independent from them. And corporations just had to abandon those buildings and let the robots be there. They couldn't do anything about it. And a group of people that was once rejected by society decided to group up together and fight the AI. But they also wanted to collect some cool loot on the way. So it's not like they just want to save the world, but they also want to make some cool money doing that.
I'm like, yeah, that. I'm like that. How do I say that fits what the characters are going for? I think, like, and in terms of like the actual levels, I suppose. Um, I'm curious why everything is hex based here.
Uh, yeah, we aimed for the hexagon theme because it really matched the how to say it, modularity of those levels, and also those levels are generated procedurally. So every time you play, the levels are a little bit different, and the hexagons really fit this mechanic.
Plus, it's a dystopia where
And
everything
it's
is
also
designed
really
so you can never fit a square desk against a wall corner evenly. Just another way that the big corporations are making life miserable for normal people.
Yeah, and it's created from it's modular, so they can just modify these buildings how they want it.
And what sorts of enemies are you facing in these hallways? Like, what sorts of corporate security are you trying to kill here?
So maybe I'll first say something about the types of enemies, because as you progress, you get to choose what enemy types you will encounter on the future floors. Your choices also impact the rewards that you will get from now on. So you have to choose really carefully. But as you play, you can choose the enemies that you are comfortable fighting against. And there are a lot of each type of enemy has two versions. So for example, laser type enemy is one version is a humanoid who just shoots three balls of energy, and another variant is the enemy that shoots like a beam of energy. So each enemy type has two versions, and boss of the building uses attacks that you have from the enemies that you have chosen on your way. So you get to choose how screwed you will be on the final floor there.
And what sorts of bosses do you face?
Some are really slow, but okay. So first boss that you will encounter is a really slow guy that calls the airstrikes on you. Some bosses are really fast, there is a ninja type boss on the second building who runs really fast, has a big, huge katana. Some bosses are stationary, so there is a big plant boss that just sits in one place but summons lots of different smaller enemies. So there are different bosses, and they all require different approach from the player.
Okay, and do you encounter the same bosses every time, or are there like two or three that get rotated out with each run?
No, each building has only one boss, but its attacks are dependent on the choices that you have made. So each time you play, the boss fight can differ a little bit because his attacks will be dependent on what you have chosen on your way.
Okay, fair enough.
But but the base of the boss is the same, and his stats as well.
Okay. And how many buildings are there?
So there are 5 buildings, and each belongs to different mega corporations. So there is a biotech, military, diesel corporation, oil corporation, and so on. So 5 of them, yeah.
Okay. And how long will it take a player to run through the game?
So it depends. For a really experienced roguelite player, it can take like 30 minutes to finish it. But for new players, it can take up to like hour and a half, I would say, to finish. Yeah, to win all the 5 skyscrapers. But you can, after you finish the skyscraper, you return to the hub, and you have an option to save your game and exit to take a break, and you can resume your run later on.
Okay. And let's see here. In terms of game releases, this is out on the PC, correct? Like,
yes.
In terms of the PC, does it have a Mac and Linux version, or is it just Windows only?
Yeah, so it has Mac and Linux version. It was also released on consoles. So it was released on the Nintendo Switch and the newest Atari VCS console. And there are plans to port this game to Xbox One and PS4.
Okay. Okay, I gotta admit, I'm kind of curious about the VCS version because you're the first developer we've had in the program that's developed a game for that particular platform.
Yeah, we thought that every person from our team admired Atari at some point of their lives. And when we heard that they plan to release a new console and they want to develop new developers to create games for it, we decided, why not? Let's try it. And as it turned out, it's not that hard to create version of our game for that console. And it really gave us a lot of visibility because Atari granted us some marketing. They promoted our game because we were like in the top 3 games that are available on Atari. So it was really cool. Yeah, and it turned out that it's really fun to play on Atari, and player base that is there really enjoyed it. So.
Right. I gotta admit, I don't exactly know what kind of metric that is, since the Atari VCS isn't...
Yeah, so it's a little bit older people, like 30 plus, I would say, on average.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking through some Facebook groups to like better understand what age are the players there. Yeah, so I would say that a little bit older players that they usually have all the consoles that are available, and they also buy Atari VCS for their collection.
Mm.
Yeah, but they really enjoyed our game on the Atari, so that's really cool.
Yep. And in regards to the Nintendo Switch version, were you able to get the full experience onto the console?
Yeah, so the experience on the console differs definitely, as well as on Atari VCS. It also is a little bit different because the controls are not as precise on those gamepads. and the frame rate is a little bit lower, because on Atari it averages on 30-40 FPS. On Nintendo Switch it's a little bit lower than that. And the Joy-Cons aren't as precise as the normal controllers, so we had to make some systems to help players with aiming on that console. Okay. So it's a little bit different experience, but people so far enjoy it, so that's good.
Mm-hmm. And in regards to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions, what is the current state of those?
It's work in progress. The company that made the Nintendo Switch version is starting to work on the PS and Xbox versions, but I'm not. I can't tell like more about the current progress on this point.
Fair enough. And as far as that beckons, I suppose my final question at this point is, given that the Danger Scavengers game is out and another entity is handling the ports, are you working on post-release content or are you working on a new project?
Yeah, so I'm preparing patches and some small updates after the release. We have released two small updates so far, and I'm creating a little bit bigger one, which will release in about a week. So it contains some bug fixes that players reported, and it also will contain some improvements to the gameplay, to the visibility, to the control scheme, and so on. Okay. So there will be small patches after the release, yeah.
All right, and will there be any like further content after that, like any sort of DLC?
We are talking about it, yeah, because that would be really cool, but right now we just want to focus on fixing the bugs that players reported us, and we'll see later on if there will be some DLCs or some new content. Yeah.
Fair enough. And let's see if my colleagues here have any further questions for you.
I was actually wondering, it showed in the trailer you guys were putting the game on GeForce Now. I was wondering what all went into that. Like, is it just send them the Steam files? Or do you have to make a special version, or?
It was... yeah, so it uses the Steam version, I think. It was really long ago, because it was like almost a year ago. But I think it uses the Steam version, yeah. And it really, people, for example, in Brazil, really enjoyed it, because GeForce Now is really popular in that country, and they really loved playing the game using this feature.
And that's all I can think of.
Yeah.
I think I'm good, but the game looked good, so.
Yeah. Oh, great, thanks.
All right. I guess I'll end things by asking, is this game coming to the Epic Games Store at any point? Because I think that's like the one store I didn't see in the trailer mentioned.
Yeah, so right now we don't have plans to put the game on Epic Store.
Okay.
So it's available on Steam, yeah, GOG, right. GeForce Now, and Humble Store, and okay. Also itch.io. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, Piotr, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being with us here today to talk about Danger Scavenger. You know, the game looks pretty impressive. You know, it's us went to Petty, so didn't have a chance to like what I've seen in terms of the footage and such. And you know, hopefully the bug fixes go well, and you know, you figure out the content plans going forward. But in the meantime, the game is Danger Scavenger. It's available on a variety of PC storefronts, the Nintendo Switch and the Atari VCS, and coming soon to the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Are there going to be any enhancements for the current gen systems, the PlayStation 5 and Series X?
Yeah, we think about it because in theory it wouldn't be that hard to port it to the newer version, but we'll think about it because the newer consoles will have the backward compatibility with the older consoles, so maybe there will not be required to create like an updated version, but we'll think about it.
Fair enough. The game retails for $9.99. Be sure to pick it up for your platform of choice today. And yes, that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. As always, be sure to join us for the Sunday reviews. And until then, I shall wish you good gaming.
Thanks, guys. So,